Lo chacham v'lo tipish, neither a chacham nor a tipish. Yodei lekros. So he's not smart, not stupid, but he knows how to read it. Lekroso, kosher. If he knows how to read it, it's kosher. If he doesn't know, then puzzle. The ein tzarich lechasus lo sharos is commotion. You don't have to cover the other letters like we have this minute to do. However, if we see that it doesn't have the form of the letter, like it's properly done, puzzle, tina kura osa kilchus, even though the kid reads it like proper. This is from the Mordechai and the Marik. Okay, and the Rivash. How the machsharin, and this do we master it, kisheniftak os, dafka is when the letter is broken. Dafka bekashrus, when it's wrote bekashrus, when it's wrote properly, there's only when it's wrote properly and afterwards it got broke. But if originally when it was wrote there was a hole there, and it became broke with that. Or if the foot of the pasha chaf, I think it's okiyot or stuff like that, magila sofa klaf reaches the end of the parchment. So I guess it has to be the long klaf, right? Sofis. Beli hakef without any wrapping, klaf of parchment. Mitchilat so from its beginning, when it started, then it'll be possible. Okay. Lo chacham, not smart. Hainu chacham kokach, he's smart so much, and maybe in Indian mitoch that they'll understand the topic. This is from the Taz. And mitoch out who Omer from this he says os hanifsak, he'll know the letter which is broke, because he'll know the topic. V'yam as far as chapter and it's explained good. Avul einek chacham imhu chacham b'hakeres. Osi, he's not called smart if he's smart about the recognition of letters. He hates it very well. The ein maven mashikosa, the fun of he doesn't understand what's in front of him. This for sure is kosher, even because you need to know the letters. Just don't cheat. From the Taz, below Tibish not stupid. Tibish hainu shaded the other cross osius. Tibish means foolish means he doesn't know how to read the letters. As long as anyone knows how to read the letters, this is from the Prima Gadim. And the Mechad the Jackal is Mashal Chura, Nupaling is the Yargis on this. If anyone knows how to read the letters, Apple God, they know Baki Kokach with Tsuris, even though he's not such a Baki in the form of the letters, Coach Omer the end that both Tsuris is possible. Anytime he says it's not the form of the letter, it's possible, even though he's not a perfect Baki. You don't have to cover everything, but think that's what the Vosh says. I'm not going to promise Hashem. My read costs of Tzarech Lakasis says you do have to cover them. Mash is one what's in front of them. She'im Yaskel Mitchila Samikra. That if he starts in the beginning of the pasuk, Tzarech Nakabazl, he'll just is like his custom. He'll pick and he'll go. So you have to do before. So this way you can't go like and then continue. He'll just have to start from here and he won't be able to do it. But if you Tinik Shalo Lamed but also Parsha, even a Tinik which hasn't learned that Parsha, cover what's before. Okay. So this is from the Berhativ. Afilu Hachazar Chaz is well masha the fun about Tevazu. You have still to cover what's before this until this letter. Avul Tevazu, but this letter Gam Masha Lachar V'Inzor Chazos Klal. But this letter and what's after it, you don't have to cover at all. Ha'os, the letter. It doesn't remain if we see that it doesn't have the form of the letter. Kagon, for example, Alfin, She'en Yud Shel Hem Nogan El Atzman, that their Yuds don't touch of the alef themselves. If you see that alef, it does. It's basically a slanty line and two Yuds. One on the bottom, one on the top. One upside down, one normal. Okay, this is from Okay, so the last one was King Kasav, but when he says, but this from this one on, it doesn't. This is written from the Marit. Chelik Yeridei Lam Gimel Ein B'derech Chayim Hilchos Kriyas Torah Umistama Rahu. For sure, his stomach didn't see that thing. Tilav Hachi Hayim Mavir, he would bring it. Okay. Malukit, this is all took, and so this stuff here is from the Malukit Mitaz. This is taken from the Taz, the Magen Avram, Pri Megadim, and the V'der Chaim, B'zulok Eli Rabba, not like the Eli Rabba. These are things taken from them. Alvin, so let's say the alef doesn't have the yud touching them. For example, the dot of the pay, not the dot, but the part that goes in a little bit. She'eno gas, the gag doesn't touch the head of it, top of it. And the whole all the osiyos she'en b'shutos which are not straight. She'ish hefsek be'emtzum, there's a break in the middle of them. Shehu possible that it would be possible in all cases. Beinim nasa be'zeh be'isa, see whether this wrote in the time, whether this happened at the time of the writing, or lachos or after writing. Shlomo hani kriyas atina, that the reading of the kid doesn't help. Ela heichos shenifsak os. It's only when the letter is broke, but batzer le mishuran has a little bit shorter than its measure. Because of this, dom holos v'gmiktas los achot. Similar this letter to another letter. Kigon vav ketia, for example, a cut vav. Shana mispakim im hagia l'orach vav, where it's misupik of a reach to the length of a vav. O kishir yod, or it's a yod. L'kach toil kriyas atinok, therefore it helps to read the reading of the tinok. The gilim also be'almahu, it's just a general revelation of the matter. The orach vav sheyesh, then it has the length of a vav. It has to meet a look hard yod from the fact that you didn't read it yod. Within the os known, for example, and the same thing would be by another letter, pshuta, which is long or posh straight. V'chaf pshuta, and a chaf which is long. Shei safek im yesh lehem chir, or if there's a safek, if they have in them the measure of the length of them. Or chaf kafufa, or a chaf which is bent. Shedom b'miktas the base, which is similar a little bit to a base, the circle one. And stuff like that. If this form is similar to another letter. When we see that the letter doesn't have its form, what does it help to look with the seeing of the tinuk? We see that the letter is not in its form. Therefore, there isn't a mash in the alef. Where its left side doesn't touch the middle line. Because the Tinuk reads it right, it doesn't have the form. It's not just, we don't know, is it this letter? Does it look like that letter? It's not this letter. Whether it looks like another letter or not, it's not this letter. Because the Tinuk reads it, alef. The Mipnei appeared because of the separation. Lo yita lomer shu ayin v'fucha. You won't make a mistake to think, oh well, this is an upside down ayin or something. Fuha then v'pshutos, and similarly with the straight ones. Imanu ron she vada she'en vo tzuras os. If we see for sure that doesn't have the form of the letter, lo mahani mashin to the Tinuk doesn't help, but the Tinuk reads it that says it has the right letter. It's not. Also, kaf. Rak b'safik lanu. It's only if we're suffik about it. If it has the right measure, karoi properly mahani, then it helps. Below tinuk, all this without a tinuk. In tinuk, I'm verlacha. Or below tikkun. Well, then you tikkun without fixing it. But in regards to fixing it, we'll look at the verlacha. So I mean, does the tinuk help in regards to fixing it? Yudea the close, he knows how to read it. Oz the feeling who knock of golo, even if it's a big hole, then it'll have to go a big break. Shepri dafso nikar, and that its separation is very clear. The hedge is ever straight out, kosher. Still be kosher, but into Hashem tikkun, you won't have to fix it at all. The loy hey adif may ilu cost of the shouldn't be any better than from if he wrote it l'chafila os kotzer, a letter which is very small, because I like this. The kosher that it would be again kosher. because you could mean it from the break on, it's okay. If you can't read it, even if the break was made afterwards, could go on Shakava Tzadaya, for example, the ink jumped me a cloth from the parchment. Venisha dak Venisha rak roshem admimos, and just remains a little bit of an impression of redness. Me'achaluda from the rust, shaladai of the ink. Even if the break was so small, that its separation was not very clear to everyone. Can you show can you show them also the part which is below the break, the korlos, and then he reads it as the red letter properly. Still it's possible. The aims of Tzarfin low mashal math. If you can't combine what's below it, Kamosha as the Thai says, fine, because it's broken. All this is in regards to remaining this way without fixing it. In regards to fixing it, so if the kid knows how to read the letter, then through combining what's below it, that would help for even for tefillin and mezuzahs to be considered dafka. Then we say we need it in order specifically. Doesn't completely destroy the name of the letter there. Since the kid knows how to read it through combining the parts. Even if this break was made at the time of writing, it still would be called the letter. Enough that you could fix it. All this when it's not clear the separation. When it's very clear the separation, doesn't help any fixing it. Even if it's made after the writing. Find the comment of Sif Kof Hey. Look at later on Sif Hey. We wrote about this. But if we see that it's not the right letter, I have Mishnah Berura. Look at Mishnah Berura. Let me just see if I got that right. Yeah. All this was also talking without fixing it. In regards to fixing it, Mahani Alkopanim, it could be a Kriya Satinik itself, is at least the reading of a Tinik. There's no difference between the straight ones and the bent ones. Kol B'dina K'moshe Kasavim B'tkila, all the din is like we wrote originally. Kol Zeh Berurti B'divrei Pri Megadim, all this is clarified in the Pri Megadim. B'simen Zeh B'harba Mekomeres, and this in many places. V'yesudini Apratim, and further more laws of the specifics in regards to fixing Yispar Mir Tashem the Kama Sif Kofei. We'll explain later in Sif Kofei Mir Tashem. Okay, not so bad. Here we go. These are hard stuff. Kishinif Zagov, when the letter was broke. What then? And similarly be. And so what's this talking about? Okay, then if something else is broken. Okay. What then? Similar what we allowed earlier, but if Tazvav Imnika of regular hay, that if there's a hole in the hay. This is from the Pri Megadim and Lakute Prisham. No, sorry, the Lucy Strad from the L. Lucy Strad over there and then earlier. Okay. Regular hay. Abu Benekav Kololo, but if there's a hole in the air part space of it, the master shall be allowed there on Mechaber, the Mechaber leather, who Afilu Nikev Kodemat, even if the hole was before the writing, then it wouldn't make a difference. We said it has to be afterwards, it was rolled properly, and then because problem is like Kafis Kvil, right? It has to have parchment at the time of writing. So if it has to be rolled properly, so there was parchment around all the ink, and then there's a hole. So now you don't have the parchment problem because it only is time of writing thing. And only picked over there if after he wrote it this thing. It's only because of the sefer where there's a hole in the regel. But in the airspace, it could even have a hole before, right? Because it's surrounded by parchment there. The achkaf and afterwards there was a break. And the reason is because we don't need to be surrounded by parchment all the ink. Only at the time of writing, when it's wrote, it has to have parchment. Afterwards, it could break up or whatever. According to this, even if the whole reaches from one letter to the next, the samachlo, which is next to it, gam kosher would still be kosher. Okay, because there's no need for any parchment. In regards to in the lachos of Kriyas Torah, but then of Zion, he's machmer about it reaching from one to the other. Look at the berura. You should know further the inyan negias osios in regards to touching the letters. I feel ill in Yodeh very knows clearly that this was made after the writing. Gam came possible would still be possible if the letters touch. Okay. This from the Derech HaChaim Sham over there. V'chein mashma v'Shmuel, similar to mashma v'Shmuel v'Even Ezer. V'simon Kov Chav Hey, Siv Katan Chav Tes. Ayin Sham. The Spirulei Gamkin. He also holds the Sorach L'chad Lachosh L'Teretz Rishon. You have to be concerned about the first Teretz Shabbeis Miyosef, which in the base also be the very maskul in the Imtama. The Ein Machalik Ben Negia Ben Im Lo Hikuf Be'esek Siva O Achkach. That he doesn't make a difference in regards to touching whether it was not surrounded at the time of writing or afterwards. Mitchila, from the beginning of it. And if you have a suffix when when the hold was made, we base it or we assume that after the writing was made. That assumed if it was the time of the writing, the sofer would see it. In Losha Hanekev Cotton Me'od, unless the hole is very small, and then maybe you could have missed it. So the Derech HaChaim. Nekev is a hole. Dafka Nekev Okara is only a hole or a tear. After She'ain Nicker Klal, I have to give them, it's not very clear at all. The break, and Mishum Delo Hayam Mukaf Grill, and the problem is it was because it wasn't surrounded by parchment, basically, at the time of writing. It's in the Rusi Shrat. But just a general break, it'd be kosher. And you wouldn't have to fix anything. Because there's a measure of letter until that place, and it would be totally fine. This is from the Chadusha Ricky Veger and the Yashar Achon, the other Achonim. Ukidul El B'Sif Tazayin. Sif Tazvav Sif Tazayin. And as I said earlier in Sif Tazvav and Sif Tazayin, because there is parchment there, it's just a break. Because there's part. And if it finds that there's very small lines, in the middle of the letter, Regel, a foot of the chaf. For sure, the head of the roof of the letter, in the middle of them, which don't have on them a surrounding of parchment, basic siva at the time of the writing. You have the head of the letter and the middle of them, which don't have a surrounding with parchment at the time of the letter writing. Menaka regular Rabusa picked the foot of it for a chiddush. After base kasiva sof haregel kvar nigma. Even at the time of writing, the end of the foot was already finished. Siva sof haregel. At the time of writing, the end of the regel kvar nigmar tzura sos kvar. Already finished the form of the letter properly. Filohachli kolshik man shalo silik yadu mina os, as long as he hasn't moved his hand away from the letter, mikri davar zeba is, because this is called the time of writing. Ubeinu nachola os hakavas gavil, and we need for the whole letter surrounded by parchment, meaning by the foot you're already done the letter. So the letter was Mokav Kavil until you're finished. And in other words, Mokav Kavil when the regel was wrote, the minimum regel. Now, if you've taken it, so that's your problem. It should be after the ksivas. So the answer is no. Well, as long as you're still writing, it continues the process. Bli hakav, without surrounding. Even if it's as long as proper, the hainu sheyesh shir, it has it on at the measure shafilim nigro akatas, that even if you erased the scratch a little bit, lamata on the bottom, yeshar tzuras also would remain the form of a letter. Kamakum pasul would still be pasul. This is from the Magen Avraham Sivkat and Chafez. Look at the Ayin Magen Avraham Sivkat and Gimel. Mitchilaso. So there was permits originally. Aval im nechtach haklaf achakach bal yedeza en makom kavel kasha. But if he cut the parchment afterwards, and through this there's not surrounded by parchment, then it would still be kasha because it had parchment when it was wrote. Okay, it could be possible. Vim wrote to the sakin, and if he wants to fix it, so then he made it so big that it had no klaf. Now he wants to fix it. Yigur Kitsaso can cut it, you have to scratch it a little bit, Kadeshi Jiu Mokville, that it should be surrounded with parchment. Avo Dibuk Matlas, but attaching like a cloth or something, Lomahani the Hakavas Kvilla doesn't help for us being surrounded by parchment. To be in Hakavas Os Miguf has Sefer Torah Mezuzos. That we need that the letter be surrounded from the main part of the Sefer Torah and the Mezuzos, whatever it is. This is from the Pri Megad and the Yishal Avram and the Achachayim, and the one before is from the Magen Avram. Okay. So even if it's very long and you could scratch it out, it has to be scratched out. Okay. And you could do that. Fix it like by scratching it a little bit. Don't attach a piece of it. It should have to be catched when it's real properly. Mikom makom. Dafko benifsak al yidei nekav. It's only when it's broke through a hole. Get right, because it needs to be. It's only when there's a hole is there a problem with parchment missing. The Beis Yosef b'tzirutzu hashena, because the Beis Yosef in his second answer, Hosef al yidei nekav b'inan gamkein shenifsakach, that he adds in that by a hole you need it to be broke also afterwards. We need also that it should be broke afterwards. Abel benegia os for os, but in regards to touching one letter to the next, even if it was wrote properly, pasul, and then afterwards it would attach somehow, then it would be pasul. This is mashron ches. This is the davar Moshe chelik orachayim siman ches. Have you all gone to Rabbi Akiva Eiger? He brings Rabbi Akiva Eiger v'chadushav in his chadushim v'derech hachayim b'hilchos kriyas Torah and derech hachayim b'hilchos kriyas Torah b'din chafei. So the gamma zet tali b'shnei tirutzim is also this is based on two tirutzim b'veishav Beis Yosef which are in the Beis Yosef. And the tirutz sheni, and according to the second one is kosher. Ach shetzarach the lochosh the Hamar Shnei Terutzim. The Hamar Shnei, you have to be concerned for the Chomers of the two Terutzim. Okay, v'nimsa sheyesh b'zeh l'devar v'sveika d'Rabbanan, and it comes sveika d'din, and it comes out according to his words that this is a suffix for din. So it's according to it could be one. It's based on two roots in Beis Yosef, and according to the second one, it'll be kosher, but you have to be machmer. Okay. There's no proof at all. The Sham Myri Be'esak, see what they were talking at the time of writing Gufa itself. After the form of the letter has been made. It's touching one letter to the next one at the time of writing. Which is not true by this, he's already taken off his hands. And as far as the Machrachas, as far as very proven, from what the Shulchan Aruch says, it touches the end of the clef. It touches the end of the clef. Al Korchach the Ein Sober, he for sure doesn't hold like the Rishami, the Mashra ben Agiyas Oslo, so Mashra when one letter touches the next. After finishing the form, okay, okay. Because of a pre-show beragras, the pre-show in the beragras is that if you hold it, it has to be touching the bottom. Then for sure you don't hold it. It can't be touching the bottom. Hold you can't, it's kosher. You have to hold it's not kosher touching one letter to the next. Okay. But Afal came because of the basop, and still he says at the end, B'li hakif klaf without any surrounding parchment. Let's see. So is this also one? This is a better one. B'li hakif klaf mitchila dafka. It's from without being surrounded by parchment at the beginning, specifically. Then mashra dim nechdach klaf. It's mashra that if you would afterwards cut the parchment on the bottom, the achakach afterwards, al yedei ein mokafil. And through this, it's not surrounded by parchment. Kosher would still be kosher. And before you have to say the reason is like we wrote that there could be a difference between before and after in regards to being surrounded by parchment. And we talk about Shetzian Agra in the midst of what the Gra signs out for Besif and this and Tifyud Chas Sifkat and Nun. And Shem look with there. Mash with the Gamkein Shem Farsh the Shulchan Aruch. It's also Mash that explains the Shulchan Aruch. The Mari Be'esik see what he's talking at the time of writing. The Ein Soser Klalif Svars Ateret Hasheni. It doesn't so contradict at all the second answer. Shazachor Shulchan Aruch Vasif Teszayin, which the Shulchan Aruch mentioned in Teszayin. It comes out from the words the Ein Rai Lahachman. There's no proof to be Machmer Yosef is more about this Masha Silver Baal Derech Chaim than what the Baal Derech Chaim holds of it Sham over there. Ein Sham look over there. To speak the Dina to Safik Dina Benafkamina Lenin Lahotzi Acheres, and the Nafkamina would be in regards to taking out another one. Ein Sham look over there. Vachach Niftok, and it was a break afterwards. I'm basically Yosef. Look at the base Yosef. I'm Bederech Chaim. Look at the Berech Chaim. It has Chutz Kriyas to Torah. Then Chav Zayin. And Garz Tefillah to Torah. Then Chav Zayin. Shekatz Hashem right through there. The after the Teretz Rishi, even according to the verse Teretz, Shel Beis Yosef, the base Yosef, Posel Be Chas was a Kafif Gevil. He apostles that if there's a lacking of being surrounded by parchment, I did not go through a hole. The Rak, the Chumrah, Chaj is the Mechaber, and only the Chumrah is the Mechaber coaches for the second teretz. Okay, but I guess according to the first teretz, it's no good, and the second teretz is really not really good teretz except to be mafra about. Mukha Shama truth in the Devar according to words, there's no difference between the according to the Machalik between Nikiv Mikodam and Nikav Achar Ksivot for having a hole before and having a hole after the writing. Rak imish al kapanim hakav kabila lenakav she'etalos, except that at the very least there's a surrounding of parchment which is by the letter. The neck of aim avatal hakafas kavil she'saviva, that the hole doesn't destroy the surrounding of parchment which is around it. Nimsa sheish hakav kavil al kapanim, it sees that it comes out that there's at least a little bit of parchment around it at the very least. But if hole reaches from one letter to the next, Shasamach, which is next, and the Pasul Bechol, and he holds it to Pasul in the Bechol in every case. The Zechoshav can Gios Los, this counts as touching one letter to the next. With your Rishon, so this is how he's learning. With your Rishon, the Naktinan Kavase, and according to the first answer that we pass in like, Gamkein Bilahachmir, also in a case of to be machmir about it. Ulahachik Pasul, therefore he's passing Hamachabil El earlier, Lefi Yerushalmi, according to Yerushalmi, Afilu Im La'achashin Echavnik, even if afterwards, if there was a hole, after it was wrote there was a hole because it's like touching the letters, one to the next. V'zeh Kol Kol, and this one has a hole on all of its airspace. Havikanagio is also the same thing as touching one letter to the next. Ayin Sham, look over there. Kol Zel Lefi Dait, this is all according to his opinion, although Prima Gadim B'Mishra Zav, Sif Katan Ches, Daito, the Iker Dino, the main din, the Mechaber who rak Kodem Shinachtav is only before writing, but afterwards it'd be okay. A Pliya Niskav al Divri Havder Chachayim, and a Pliya, I guess, I don't know what Niskav means, on the words of the Divri Chachayim. In Kain, Lamakasav, if so, then why did he write, O im regel or if the foot? Bli hekef klaf mitchilasa without being surrounded by parchment from originally. Afilu ima klaf shesamach laos nechtach achkav, even if the parchment which was around the letter was cut afterwards. Tzorach lios pasul ladina should still be pasul afterwards. So what do you mean? Why is he writing from its originally surrounded by parchment? So even if it was cut off afterwards, it'd be no good. The Shema halacha Keteret Rishon, because maybe the halacha is like the first turn for Lomit Milchalkina being called Nachakach. Then we don't make a difference between before and afterwards. It has to be surrounded by parchments. V'rakmanika mekalina misham diyesh alkopanim akavas gvil, but just by a hole we're makel because maybe there's at least at the very least. So by a hole there's some sort of surrounding a parchment samach lenekav around the hole. She'etz los, which is by the letter. Masha'enkim is that which is not true by this. Shenechtach legarment, which is be completely cut off. Elavade da Beis Yosef over the imnasa nekav lachar ksiva. Then for sure you have to say that the Beis Yosef holds that if there's a hole, made the hole after the writing, kosher b'chol because in every case, even if there's no parchment around it. Nuka teretz l'sheinu, like the second teretz, will be in an oz mukafil. You don't need then any kind of surrounding parchment. But only really further appears to me, be'emes in truth, the kol shekenim the feet teretz rishon. For sure, even according to the first teretz. It doesn't pass the lacking of being surrounded by parchment, they neck up through a hole. Because the Beis Yosef holds the whole din he brought this din out, that he wrote in the Shulchan Aruch, Machmas the Kek Sholo, Hekum Machsharin and Benifsak Sham Os, how can we allow any when there's a hole, any letter which has been broke through a hole? But we say that any letter which isn't surrounding by parchment from its four sides, it's possible. But teretz the lo amrin and kol os, we don't say that every letter rakash ahaya al yedei negias os os. There's only when it's touching one letter to the next. Avalim al yedei nika, but if it's through a hole, inami dulo paslinan machmas okay. Even if we don't parcel it because of being surrounded by parchment, only if at the time of writing it was not surrounded, which is not true when it's wrote properly. So the first answer is we only say there's a problem of not being surrounded by parchment when it's one letter touching one letter to the next. And the second answer is the lopas lin and mahos hekav kavil. It's only at the time of writing. Lo haisim was not surrounded. Mashenkin kishinechla b'kasher, which is not true when it's wrote properly. But Beis Yosef had to po ladina teretz, and here the Beis Yosef is copying over here the second teretz, so that it's only if it's at the time of writing. Lefi Divrei Hader Chaim, according to the words of Hader Chaim Hanal, Sheyatzel Ladon B'Davar Chadash, that he wants to judge a new thing. Dafal Teretz Rishon, even according to the first Teretz, Bein and Hefsek Hakavos Gvil, you also need to surround the parchment. Ach Lahani, even when there's a hole and not just when they're touching. Ach Lahani Kosher Al Yidei Nikav Nisbet, so this is Kosher, the Hochli Kosher, this is why it's Kosher when there's a hole. Mishum Liyesh Gvil, there is parchment. Me'ever Hadlan Naka, from past the hole. Okay. Over? I don't know. Anyways, there's parchment around the hole. Some close near the letter. She'etzlo, which is next to it. And then he's calculating that as being surrounded by parchment. Tamahani avateman. Dim came that if so, in Maregel hachaf, if the edge of the foot of the chaf, Magia Lasofa reaches to the end of the parchment, Bli Hafsik without being surrounded by parchment, possible if you the teretz rishon the devar would be possible even according to the first teretz, according to his words. This is not true. Kedemuchel Beis Yosef, as the Beis Yosef says, that according to the first teretz it's okay because it's only a problem of mehakav kavil, meaning ink, not holes or anti-parchments. His name comes in Beis Yosef to was Ralbach, as it says in the Ralbach. The silver, the postal was there. Well, us your rock me teretz. The one apostle. This is only according to the second teretz. So if im teretz and l'tchok, even if you want to be pressing with Beis Yosef and the rest of the kuli alma, cost the ladina the keha olbach. Like he says, according to everyone, he writes within like the Ralbach. Achein mordach midak Moshe orach. Muchach behedye proves this clearly the teretz rishon kosher b'zeh. It's kosher about this. I'm sham like there. Afterwards, I found Bez Hashem Yisbarach with the help of Hashem. He should be blessed. Shagam be'am Halavush Yisrad, even the Lavush Yisrad Masik b'zeh. He also has a question on this. Al Hanod Behuda, on the Nod Behuda Shekas of Gam Kain. The Derech Chaim. He also writes in like the Derech Chaim, and now like we said earlier. Gam Prima Godim b'Mishra Zav. Also the Prima Godim the Mishra Zav is Sevkan Yadal. Kosev Lehedya. He also writes the Ferish. The teretz rishon according to the first teretz of the Shalom Beis Yosef, the Beis Yosef, a little bit inan hakvil benakav. You don't eat surrounding parchment by the hole. Even if the beginning of the writing the chaf was beli hakav klaf, kosher would be without surrounding parchment would still be kosher because holes don't are. The only problem is ink. Then came the male if he's so automatically because of this a few im Nekam Megillah Os, even if the hole would reach one letter to the next, Shasamachlo, which is next to Kasher L'Didan, it would be Kasher according to us, but it should not Sach or Ksiva if it would be made after the writing, because it's not going to be a okay. Obstacles at Barabez. Obstacles at Barabez Hashem Yisparach. Even though this is all clear with the help of Hashem Yisparach, Mikol Malcolm still Tzarech Lian L'Maisa. We still need the depth to think about this in regards to the case. Achrish Derech Chaim and the Behuda Derech Chaim and the Behuda Machrin Bedavar are machrin about this. Upon it, at the very least, be a star if Od Eza Kula, if they would be attaching and another whatever other Kula could go on Sha'oz Gadol Yosem Mishiur, for example, the letter is a little bigger than its measure. Venekav Nasa Besofa, when there's a hole at the end of this letter, this big letter, but often Shafilu Im Yanaka Makom Hanaka, that even if you would take out the place of the hole, Vishir the Akafas Gvil, and the measure for Akafas Gvil, you would take that all out. Gamkain Yishar Shir Haroi Loasos, you still remain the measure enough for that letter, it's that big. Yesh L'Tzarech, the tzad, the hok, you could be decided to be makel. L'Tzarech was that das haradach, you can attach it into the radach. Shahuva v'simen zeb b'magen avram v'shabran v'simen b'magen avram sevkat and gimel. Ki afilu l'das handar chaim, even according to Derech Chaim hanod v'anod b'huda hanaum, and then rak misfeka dedina. There's only from misfeka dedina. The shem halacha kater training, maybe the halacha is like the second teretz. We also talk, okay. And therefore, it can be makel. The Mishnah Berurah says that he thinks there's no problem, and the Nodi B'Huda is thinking that if there's no problem if there's a hole from one letter to the next, as long as it's made afterwards. And then there's even the coin of people who are machma, it's only because of one teretz, and then there's another teretz to hold it's big enough. If it's big enough, it's not a problem. Yosu tov v'miyachal agar, and it'd be better if you're able to erase out a little bit miyove akav from the thickness of the lines, shell os of the letter. Via mekav gvel, and then be surrounded by parchment. Dezeh mahani b'chol gav. This will help in all cases. Mafilu b'tfilonim b'tfilonim mezuzos, to be in them, consider them, we need them in order. Hitir Hamagan Avram as the Magan Avram is matter Legaro Ketzas Regal Achaf, to erase a little bit of the foot of the Chaf. Hanogea the sof that reaches to the end, Billy Hack of Klaf being without surrounded by parchment, you can erase some of it and that's fine. So to here the one hole is touching one to the next, so just erase a little bit and that'll be fine.